A Labrador Retriever so aggressive that even shelter staff feared approaching his kennel. Everyone said he was beyond hope and should be put down. Behind the cage, he snarled at anyone who came close, his eyes reflecting a history no one knew. But when a woman who understood trauma saw past his aggression, something extraordinary began to unfold. This incredible journey from feared shelter dog to beloved companion will show you how patience, understanding, and unconditional love can transform even the most broken spirits. Get ready for a story that will change how you see aggressive animals forever. Don't go near that one. The warning came from Megan, the shelter manager, as she guided new volunteer Elise through the facility. That's Rex. He's been here 8 months. Nobody can get close to him. Elise paused at the kennel door, observing. The Labrador Retriever pressed into the far corner. His black and tan coat was dull, his powerful body tense. At first glance, he seemed to be sleeping, but Elise noticed his eyes were open, watching her with alarming intensity. "What's his story?" she asked, maintaining a respectful distance. Police found him chained in an abandoned property. Looks like he was used as a guard dog by some not-so-nice people. He's never shown aggression toward other dogs, just people, especially men. As if to confirm this assessment, a male volunteer walked past, and Rex immediately lunged at the kennel door, teeth bared, a deep growl emanating from his chest. The volunteer hurried past, muttering about that crazy dog. "We've tried everything," Megan continued. "Trainers, behaviorists, medication. Nobody can get close enough to help him. The board's meeting next week to discuss his fate." Elise understood what that meant. As a therapist specializing in trauma recovery, she recognized the signs: hypervigilance, fear-based aggression, triggered responses. But she saw something else too, something in those amber eyes that the others had missed. "May I sit here for a while?" she asked, gesturing to the floor opposite Rex's kennel. Megan looked surprised. "Sure, but he won't interact. He just growls or retreats." After Megan left, Elise settled cross-legged on the floor, deliberately avoiding eye contact with Rex. From her bag, she removed a book and began reading aloud in a soft, monotonous voice, not speaking to Rex, simply existing in his space without demands or expectations. For 20 minutes, she read while Rex watched. His body, still tense, but his growling subsided. When she finished her chapter, she closed the book without looking at him. "I'll come back tomorrow, Rex," she said quietly, standing and walking away without turning back. She didn't see how Rex's eyes followed her until she disappeared from view, or how he moved slightly forward from his corner once she was gone. "You can't be serious." Dr. Harris, the shelter veterinarian, stared at Elise across the conference table. "That dog is dangerous. He needs to be in a specialized facility, not someone's home." The shelter board meeting had been underway for 20 minutes, with Elise's adoption application for Rex generating heated debate. Outside, a storm raged, rain lashing against the windows of the small conference room. "With all due respect, Doctor," Elise countered, "Rex has been misunderstood. His aggression is fear-based, not dominance-based. He needs consistency and safety to overcome his trauma. You live alone, no children, no other pets." The board president reviewed her application. "Yes, I have a fenced acre of land with a secure home. I work primarily from home as a trauma therapist. I understand the rehabilitation process will be lengthy and potentially challenging." Megan, who had initially been skeptical, spoke up. "She's the only person who's been able to get near him without triggering aggression. I've seen their interactions. There's something there." The debate continued as board members expressed concerns about liability and Rex's well-being. Finally, the president called for a vote, 4-3 in favor of the adoption, with conditions. "Ms. Bennett, you'll need to work with our recommended trainer, weekly progress reports for the first 3 months. And if there's any incident whatsoever, Rex returns immediately." As Elise signed the paperwork, she could hear Rex barking in the kennel area, agitated by the storm. She knew the real work was just beginning. Getting Rex home presented the first major challenge. He refused to enter a crate, growling and backing away. Eventually, Megan helped secure a temporary partition in Elise's SUV, creating a safe space for the tense Labrador Retriever. The 30-minute drive was filled with Rex's anxious panting and occasional growls. When they reached Elise's small farmhouse, rain was still falling, making Rex even more reluctant to exit the vehicle. Elise entered her home first, leaving doors open so Rex could see her movement. She placed a long training lead on the ground and stepped away. After 20 tense minutes, Rex finally emerged. From the car, following the lead into the house at his own pace, maintaining significant distance from Elise. Inside, she had prepared a space in the corner of her living room, a crate with the door removed, lined with soft bedding, positioned to allow Rex to see the entire room. She had removed decorative items, securing anything that might startle. 3 weeks into their new arrangement, progress was measured in inches rather than miles. Rex would now eat while Elise was in the room, though he still waited until she stepped back a significant distance. He slept more, the hypervigilance gradually decreasing, but he remained unreachable physically and emotionally. Marcus, the trainer assigned by the shelter, visited weekly. A burly man with extensive experience rehabilitating aggressive dogs, he was initially skeptical of Elise's approach. "You need to establish dominance," he insisted during his first visit, standing at the edge of the living room while Rex growled from his corner. "Show him you're in charge." Elise disagreed. "That will only reinforce his fear of human control. He needs to learn cooperation, not submission." Their philosophical differences created tension, with Marcus predicting failure unless Elise took a firmer hand. Yet she remained committed to her approach: presence without pressure, consistency without force. The turning point came unexpectedly on a quiet Tuesday evening. Elise was sitting on the floor, reading as she had at the shelter, when Rex began pacing anxiously. His behavior escalated until he was frantically circling the living room. Recognizing signs of distress, Elise moved to open the back door. The moment she stood, Rex lunged at her with a ferocious growl, teeth bared. Elise froze, her heart racing but her voice remaining steady. "It's okay, Rex. I'm just getting the door." Moving slowly, telegraphing each motion, she opened the door to the fenced yard. Rex bolted outside, circling the perimeter before squatting. Only then did Elise understand. He'd needed to relieve himself but had no way to communicate, and her sudden movement had triggered his defensive response. That night, she created a simple bell system by the door, planning to teach Rex to signal his needs. But the incident had revealed something important. Rex hadn't actually tried to bite her. Despite his fearsome display, he had maintained control, offering warning rather than attack. The next morning, Elise woke to find Rex in the center of the living room, not his corner. He retreated when she appeared, but the change in his chosen resting place signaled growing security. During that day's reading session, Elise remained in her usual spot, but placed Rex's food bowl a few feet closer to her than usual. Rather than waiting for her to move away, Rex approached cautiously, maintaining eye contact as he stretched toward the bowl. The distance between them had narrowed to 6 feet, the closest they had ever been without a barrier between them. When Marcus arrived that weekend, he immediately noticed the change in Rex's demeanor. The Labrador Retriever still retreated when the trainer entered, but the frantic barking had subsided to watchful silence. "Something's shifted," Marcus acknowledged. "He's assessing rather than just reacting." For the first time, he observed without offering criticism as Elise demonstrated their new routine. When she showed him the bell system she was implementing, he nodded with newfound respect. "You're giving him a voice," he realized. "A way to communicate without fear." "That's what he needs most," Elise explained. "Control over his environment and a voice in his own care." As Marcus left, he paused at the door. "I still think he may never be comfortable with strangers, especially men. Are you prepared for that possibility?" 2 months after adoption, the invisible barriers continued to fall. Rex now slept at the foot of Elise's bed, though still maintaining a careful gap between them. He had mastered the bell system for going outside and developed a series of distinctive whines that Elise had learned to interpret as his communication for different needs. Despite this progress, physical contact remained forbidden territory. If Elise moved too suddenly or came too close, Rex would retreat, the fear returning to his eyes. She had yet to touch him even once. Marcus, now converted to Elise's methods, suggested a breakthrough might never come. Some dogs, especially with abuse histories, simply can't overcome their fear of physical contact. He's functioning well, he's not suffering. That might be enough. Elise accepted this possibility while continuing their slow dance of gradually decreasing distance. Each day, she moved Rex's food bowl an inch closer to her position. Each day, the invisible bubble around him contracted slightly. On a crisp autumn morning, their routine was disrupted by an unexpected visitor. A delivery truck pulled into Elise's long driveway, triggering Rex's immediate retreat to his safe corner. The driver, unaware of the situation, knocked loudly and then tried the front door handle. When no one immediately answered, the rattle of the door sent Rex into a panic. He launched across the room with a volley of aggressive barks, placing himself between Elise and the door, hackles raised and teeth bared. Elise called out to the driver, "Please leave the package on the porch, I'll get it later." Through the window, she watched the confused delivery man set down his package and return to his truck. As the vehicle pulled away, Rex's barking subsided, but he remained on high alert, trembling with residual adrenaline. "Thank you," Elise said softly, deliberately not reaching toward him despite the powerful urge to comfort him. "You were protecting me, weren't you?" Rex maintained his guard position for nearly an hour before finally returning to his corner, exhausted from the sustained vigilance. That night, Elise reflected on what she'd witnessed. Not random aggression, but protective instinct. Despite his fear, Rex had placed himself between her and perceived danger. The next morning brought another shift. As Elise sat reading, Rex approached closer than ever before, watching her intently. He circled her position several times, each circuit bringing him nearer. Finally, he lay down just 3 feet away, close enough that Elise could see the pattern of his breathing, the subtle flecks of color in his amber eyes. Continuing to read aloud, she pretended not to notice this monumental development, giving him space to retreat if needed. But Rex stayed. When the first snow of winter arrived overnight, transforming Elise's property into a white landscape, Rex's reaction to the snow revealed another piece of his mysterious past. He loved it. For the first time, Elise witnessed playfulness as he bounded through the drifts, plunging his muzzle into the powder and tossing it into the air. Standing on the porch, she laughed at his antics, momentarily forgetting the careful rules of their relationship. "You're quite the snow dog, aren't you?" Rex paused his play, looking at her with an expression that seemed almost happy. He took a few tentative steps toward the porch, then retreated back to the safety of the yard, resuming his snow exploration at a greater distance. Later that afternoon, Elise needed to clear her long driveway. As she worked with the shovel, Rex watched from the safety of the porch, his eyes tracking her movements. When she slipped slightly on a hidden patch of ice, his body tensed, leaning forward as if ready to move toward her. "I'm okay," she called, steadying herself. Rex settled back but remained vigilant. As dusk approached, Elise finished the driveway and headed inside to prepare dinner. Rex followed, shaking off snow in the entryway before resuming his routine of careful proximity. Close, but never touching. That night, the temperature dropped dramatically. Elise woke at 2 a.m. to a house that felt unusually cold. Checking the thermostat, she discovered the heating system had failed. After calling the 24-hour repair service, she added logs to the fireplace in the living room, building up a warm blaze. Rex, normally settled on the bedroom floor, had followed her out, sensing the disruption to their routine. He watched as she arranged blankets near the fireplace, creating a warm spot for them both to wait out the cold night. "The repair person won't be here until morning," she told him, settling into her blanket nest. "We'll have to stay warm by the fire." Rex circled uncertainly before lying down on the far edge of the blanket arrangement, maintaining his usual careful distance. As the night progressed and the house grew colder, Elise dozed fitfully, waking occasionally to add logs to the fire. During one such awakening around 4 a.m., she was startled to find Rex had moved significantly closer while she slept. He now, lay just inches away, his body curled toward her though still not touching. The invisible boundary remained but had contracted to its smallest margin yet. Pretending not to notice, Elise added another log and settled back into her blankets. "Good night, brave one," she whispered. When she next opened her eyes, weak morning light filtered through the windows. The fire had burned down to embers, and the house was bitterly cold. But Elise felt unexpectedly warm, because during the night, Rex had finally crossed the boundary. "I still wouldn't trust him around strangers," Marcus cautioned during his visit the following week. "One breakthrough doesn't mean complete rehabilitation." Elise nodded, watching Rex, who now lay comfortably at her feet during these consultations, though he still maintained distance from Marcus. "We're taking it day by day. The physical contact is increasing but always on his terms." Indeed, in the week since the heating system failure, Rex had begun initiating brief moments of connection, leaning slightly against Elise's leg while she worked at her desk, or placing his head near her hand without quite touching it, an invitation she could accept by bridging the final inch. These were small moments easily missed by anyone unfamiliar with their history, but to Elise each represented a mountain climbed, a fear faced and overcome. The shelter board had extended their monitoring period, impressed by the progress reports but still cautious about Rex's potential for regression. Every 2 weeks, Elise submitted videos and detailed notes documenting their journey. As winter deepened, their routine expanded to include daily walks in the nearby nature preserve. Initially, Rex was tense during these outings, hyper-vigilant about other hikers or dogs they might encounter. Elise chose the quietest trails and least popular hours, gradually building his confidence in new environments. On a particularly secluded path, they had begun brief off-leash sessions, with Rex demonstrating surprisingly reliable recall despite his troubled history. Today, as snow fell gently around them, Elise unclipped his leash for their usual freedom break. Rex trotted ahead, periodically looking back to confirm her position, but venturing further than before, emboldened by growing confidence. As they rounded a bend in the trail, he suddenly froze, then darted into the underbrush with an urgent bark. "Rex, come," Elise called, alarmed by his unexpected departure. No response came except continued barking, now with a distinctive tone she hadn't heard before. Following the sound, Elise pushed through snow-laden branches to find Rex standing over a still form, partially covered by snow. It was a young woman unconscious, her hiking clothes inadequate for the dropping temperature. Rex stood beside her, barking for Elise's attention while nudging the woman's hand with his nose. "Good boy," Elise breathed, immediately kneeling to check the hiker's vital signs. The woman was breathing but cold to the touch, showing early signs of hypothermia. Her leg was bent at an unnatural angle, suggesting a fall and possible fracture had left her immobilized in the cold. Elise called emergency services, providing their location based on trail markers. As they waited, she covered the woman with her own coat and used Rex's body heat to help warm her. After 20 anxious minutes, they heard the rescue team approaching. Rex immediately tensed at the sound of unfamiliar voices, retreating to Elise's side with a low growl building in his throat. "It's okay," she soothed. "They're here to help." As the rescue team appeared, 3 men with emergency equipment, Rex's growl deepened. Elise quickly clipped his leash, moving him a short distance away while explaining the situation. The paramedics worked efficiently, stabilizing the injured hiker and preparing her for transport. Spring arrived with a letter from the shelter board, officially closing their monitoring period. Based on the remarkable progress documented, the KO letter read, "We consider Rex's rehabilitation a success story that will inform our approach to similar cases in the future." Elise pinned the letter to her refrigerator, alongside photographs tracking Rex's transformation from the tense, defensive animal in the shelter corner to the still cautious but increasingly confident dog who now shared her home and life. The physical changes were as dramatic as the behavioral ones. Rex's dull coat now gleamed with health. His body had filled out with proper nutrition and exercise, and his eyes had lost their haunted look, though still wary of strangers, particularly men. He no longer responded with automatic aggression, instead looking to Elise for guidance on how to interpret new situations. These changes hadn't come without setbacks. There had been difficult days when old fears resurfaced, causing Rex to temporarily retreat from the progress they'd made. But the general trajectory remained upward, each regression followed by new advancement. Today marked another milestone, their first visit to the shelter since Rex's adoption. Megan had requested they come speak to potential adopters about the rehabilitation process, hoping their story might inspire others to consider dogs with challenging backgrounds. As they pulled into the shelter parking lot, Rex showed signs of recognizing the location. He pressed against the car window, his body tense but not panicked. When Elise opened the door, he exited cautiously, staying close to her side as they approached the building. Inside, several staff members who had known Rex during his shelter days watched in amazement as he walked calmly beside Elise, no longer lunging or growling, though still clearly vigilant. "I can't believe that's the same dog," whispered one volunteer to another. Megan greeted them warmly, kneeling to Rex's level, though maintaining a respectful distance. "You look wonderful," she told him before turning to Elise. "We have a small group gathered in the education room. They're particularly interested in hearing about your methodology." The education room contained about a dozen people seated in a semicircle, prospective adopters and a few shelter volunteers. Rex scanned the space carefully, moving behind Elise as they entered but not showing signs of aggression. For the next hour, Elise shared their journey while Rex gradually relaxed enough to lie down beside her chair. She explained the principles that had guided their work together: patience without pressure, boundaries without force, and the critical importance of allowing Rex to set the pace of his own healing. The key was understanding that his aggression wasn't the problem. It was his solution to a problem, she explained. Once we addressed the underlying fear and gave him alternative ways to feel safe and communicate his needs, the aggression became unnecessary. As the session concluded, a woman in the back raised her hand. "There's a Labrador Retriever mix in the back kennels. Been here 3 months. They say he's too nervous. Might never be good with children. Do you think he could be helped?" "Too?" Elise smiled. "Every dog is different with their own history and personality. But yes, with the right person and approach, remarkable transformations are possible." After the presentation, Megan asked if Elise would consider consulting. Rex lay beside her chair, his head resting against her foot. To a casual observer, they might have looked like any woman and her dog enjoying a peaceful evening. But Elise knew the truth of what they had accomplished together, how far they had come from that first day at the shelter when no one believed connection was possible. "You just needed someone to see past the fear," she told him softly, reaching down to stroke his ears. "Someone who understood that your aggression was just your armor against a world that had hurt you." Rex leaned into her touch, his eyes closing in contentment. The dog no one could touch had found his person, and in doing so, had finally found his way home. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that behind the most offensive behaviors often lies a heart waiting for the right person to understand and connect. Sometimes what appears broken is simply protecting itself the only way it knows.